We hear the words data and information thrown around all the time, right? And a lot of us use them like they're the exact same thing. But here's the thing, they're not even close. So today we're going to break down why they're so fundamentally different and, more importantly, why getting that difference right is absolutely crucial if you want to make smarter decisions.
So, let me ask you something. Does this sound familiar? You're just drowning in numbers. Statistics, metrics, charts, they're coming at you from every direction, every single day. It's totally overwhelming, right? It's like you're starving for a real answer, but all you have are these endless facts with no clue what any of it actually means.
Okay, perfect example. Take a look at this number, 10,534 steps. So what? What does that even mean? Without any context at all, it's just a bunch of digits on a screen. This is a perfect, classic example of raw, totally isolated data.
Or how about this, 15 degrees Celsius? Okay, is that hot? Is it cold? I mean, if you're in Iceland in January, that's a heat wave. But if you're in Dubai in July, something's very wrong. Without that context, it's just another number floating in the void.
And one more, 782 site visits. Is that good? Bad? About average? Who knows? We have absolutely no idea. See, all of these numbers, they're just noise until we give them context. So let's figure out how we turn all that noise into a really clear signal.
So yeah, those numbers felt pretty empty, right? And that's because they were just data. To really unlock their power, we have to turn them into information. So let's get right into it and break down the core distinction between these two things. Right, first up, data. Think of data as your raw ingredients. You're standing in your kitchen and you've got a bag of flour on the counter, some sugar, a carton of eggs. They're just there. They're the basic, unprocessed facts, just sitting there, waiting for you to do something with them.
Now, information, that's the finished product. It's the delicious cookie you get after you take all those ingredients, follow a recipe, mix them up, and bake them. See? It's data that's been processed, organized, and given context to make it actually meaningful and useful. It's something you can actually enjoy or, make a decision with. And this table here just lays it all out perfectly. You've got data on one side, raw, unorganized, the ingredients, and on the other, you have information, processed, organized, the well-prepared dish. It's the difference between a random temperature reading, which is just data, and a full weather forecast that tells you, hey, you should probably bring a jacket today. That is valuable information.
So how do we actually do that? How do we get from flour and eggs to a cookie? Well, it's basically a four-step recipe. First, you got to collect all the raw data. Then you have to prepare it. That means cleaning it up, getting it organized. Step 3 is analysis. This is where you start digging for patterns and trends. And finally, you have to interpret it. You present what you found in a way that actually makes sense to a human being.
Okay, so we've been talking about cookies, which is fun, but this is way more than just a thought experiment. The difference between data and information can have, well, incredibly high stakes. We're talking about the difference between success and catastrophe. So let's shift gears and look at a real-world scenario where getting this right is just absolutely critical.
Okay, what in the world are you looking at here? This is a vibration analysis chart from a big industrial motor. For most of us, and honestly even for a plant manager who isn't a specialist, this is just a confusing mess of squiggly lines. It's pure raw data. It might be screaming that there's a problem, but it doesn't tell you what the problem is, or more importantly, what on earth you're supposed to do about it.
But now, look at this. All of those squiggly lines have been translated into one single powerful sentence. It says, the motor has a severe bearing problem and needs to be replaced in the next 90 days. Wow, that's not just information anymore. That is a clear, direct order that can prevent a massive, costly, and even dangerous failure. This is the power of turning data into real insight.
And that's really the whole point, isn't it? The difference between that raw measurement and that final recommendation. That's what prevents disaster. That's what stops a factory from shutting down, what keeps people safe, and what saves companies literally millions of dollars. It's the entire reason we even bother with this process. But how do the experts actually do it? How do they make that incredible leap from a chart of confusing lines to a crystal clear decision? Well, it turns out there are a couple different recipes, if you will, for turning all that raw data into a solid recommendation. Let's check out two of the big ones. So on one hand, you've got the experience-based method. This is kind of like your old school master mechanic who can just listen to an engine and go, yep, I've heard that sound before. The alternator's about to go. It's all based on historical data.
on patterns they've seen over and over again. On the other hand, you have a model-based approach. This is more like a modern engineer who builds a digital twin, a perfect computer model of the machine. This method doesn't just know what happened in the past, it understands the fundamental physics of how the machine is supposed to work in the first place.
Now here's the interesting part. Both of these methods could get you to the right decision, right? Both could tell you to replace the bearing. But that model-based approach, it gives you a much, much deeper understanding. It's not just about seeing a pattern, it's about understanding the cause. It doesn't just tell you that the motor is failing, it tells you exactly why it's failing. And that, my friends, is a game changer when the stakes are high.
So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you're using years of experience or a super sophisticated computer model. The ultimate goal is exactly the same. It's not just to create information, it's to create something that forces you to act. And that brings us to the grand finale, the real goal of all this work: actionable information. This is the holy grail. This is information that's so clear, so insightful, that the next step, the action you have to take, just becomes completely obvious. All the guesswork is gone.
Let's put it all together. Here's that whole journey in a nutshell. You start with the data, a single vibration reading, just a number. Then you get to information. You notice the vibration level is increasing over time. Okay, that's a trend. But the actionable insight, that's the knockout punch. Replace the motor bearing within 90 days to prevent failure. See that? We went from a single fact to a pattern and finally to a concrete plan.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? The goal isn't just to manage data. It's to create actionable information. That's the whole ballgame. We gather all this stuff, we analyze it, we pore over it for one reason, and one reason only: to get to that clear insight that lets us make a better decision. So, I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Think about your own life, right now. Your fitness tracker, your budget, maybe a big project at work. Where are you absolutely drowning in data? And what's one step you could take to start turning all that noise into a clear, simple, powerful action? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.